Stephen A. Smith. Now, we all know Stephen A. Smith from ESPN. He's pretty much the icon of the network. We all know him from a bunch of things. Like back in the day, when Stephen A. Smith was first on First Take, he would decimate Skip Bayless about the Dallas Cowboys, and we all loved him for it. I mean, Stephen A. Smith I liked back then. But nowadays, Stephen A. Smith has turned into a new breed of an analyst, of being the highest paid analyst on ESPN, or highest paid journalist, whatever the hell he is. I don't know what he is anymore. Highest paid personality on ESPN. And recently, I mean, we've seen bits and pieces of this, but recently he's been bringing race into about every situation possible. Football especially, because he feels like there's not enough black representation in football, even though the majority of the NFL is African American. He just has a problem with the coaches and things like that. That's why Mike Tomlin is his favorite coach. It's not because he's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. It's because Mike Tomlin is black. But before anybody gets into this, if there's any SJWs, beware. I am not racist, okay? I am not white privilege. I am not white. But this is a little bit political, but I just had enough of this. I really, really had enough of this, and I need to get into this, guys. And it sucks that sports has been infected with politics, but it's guys like this, Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, they love to bring race in. It's just ESPN as a whole. Do you ever see anybody else, any other network doing that? FS1, NFL Network. I don't really watch NBA stuff like that, so I couldn't really tell you. But those other places I do not watch. Not even Colin Cowherd brings up pandering to the black race and things like that. I mean, just leave it out of sports, please. But Stephen A. Smith continues on to bring that up. And we're going to talk about the Giants here as I try to find my headphones so I can play it. And I could play it without you guys hearing it. But we're going to play the clip together. We're going to listen to it together. And it's about Daniel Jones. This whole thing's about Daniel Jones, but of course, the whole Dwayne Haskins situation, and, you know, he's a black quarterback, and Stephen A. Smith is pretty much trying to say that Dave Gettleman is racist, but not racist at the same time, and proceeds to bring up Geno Smith into everything because he's the first black quarterback to ever start for the Giants. So we're the last, apparently. We're the last team as well. So, not that that matters at any point, but we're going to get right into it. Let's talk about Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins from Stephen A. Smith's mouth. Roll the clip.
But if Dwayne Haskins shows out, we're going to hold on to the fact that he was passed up by the New York Giants and Dave Gettleman. And here's what also resonates. In 2017, when Bob McAdoo and Jerry Reese, an African-American GM, elected to bench Eli Manning for a game and start Geno Smith, the New York Giants became the last NFL team in history to start an African-American quarterback. And they only did that one time. You got people out there talking and chirping about, I'm calling the Giants a racist organization. I'm doing no such thing. I'm not calling them anything. I'm stating fact. They haven't started up until 2017. They were the only NFL team to have never started an African-American quarterback. You do so by benching Eli Manning to insert Geno Smith for one game. Now you end up having the number 2 overall pick. And does it beg the question that if Dwayne Haskins looked a little bit differently, perhaps the New York Giants would have selected differently? We don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know their history doesn't help in that equation. And with Gettleman chirping the way that he doesn't sound like he's making much sense either.
So I apologize you guys had to endure that. I'm sure a lot of you guys cringed at that as I take off my headphones. Listen. I don't know what Stephen A. Smith was trying to get at here. He literally said, that's not what I'm trying to get at. I'm not saying the Giants are a racist organization. I don't know why people are saying that, but that's not what I'm trying to get. We're talking about Daniel Jones. We're talking about taking Daniel Jones over Dwayne Haskins. If you kept that situation how it is, I mean, we would have been fine. We would have been okay because it's an honest argument. Why did the Giants take Daniel Jones over Dwayne Haskins? Now, obviously, he had an agenda here. If he's not trying to say that this is a racially motivated type move here, drafting Daniel Jones over Dwayne Haskins, then what's your point? What was the whole point of you talking for those 3 minutes? Your whole argument, the whole thing led to Dwayne Haskins being a black quarterback if he looked a little different. if he looked a little different. And then he talks about Jerry Reese and how he started Geno Smith. He said, Jerry Reese, African American GM. Who cares? Who cares? Man. Not to mention, with all the nonsense that went around with Jerry Reese as well. I mean, Stephen A. Smith kind of wanted him fired, but yet has every single year given Jerry Reese an extra chance because he's an African American GM. The cycle just keeps repeating for Stephen A. Smith. He really, really panders to the black, NFL people out there, whether it be coaches or players or whatever it is. Well, players not so much because almost everybody's African American. You look at the NBA, he kind of criticized a lot of people. But when it comes to the NFL, he seems to like stick together with the African American and listen, there's nothing wrong with that. If you have a bias, like if you feel like, oh, I want to support the black community, I want to support the African American GMs and officials and things like that, so be it. That's just your preference. But don't shove it down our throats. You're putting the race card on Dave Gettleman, but you're not putting the race card on Dave Gettleman that he's a racist. But that's not what you're trying to get at or anything. I mean, he's like, you would say it's passive aggressive, but it's not passive aggressive. He's aggressive in what he's trying to say. I just don't know why he isn't just up and saying it. Listen, I think Dave Gettleman's a racist. I think because he's not on CNN. He's saying that, but there are a couple things. Let's just rewind a little back to it, just so I can refresh my memory, and we'll dive deeper into it.
In 2017, when Bob McAdoo and Jerry Reese, an African American GM, elected to bench Eli Manning for a game and start Geno Smith.
I also want to talk about. He said Bob McAdoo. It's Ben McAdoo. And I don't want to seem very petty and be like, oh, well, you said his name wrong. But I guarantee you, if someone were to mispronounce a black coach's name, instead of Mike Tomlin, they say Mike Coughlin or something like that, the world would just explode. Stephen A. Smith would be right on Twitter and say, I can't believe he mispronounced his name, and this is definitely a racist type move. I can't believe we're not respecting the black and African American community. We're undermining them and things like that. I mean, the fact that they just brushed it aside, Max Kellerman, Molly Karam did not correct him in his statements, just says how I don't want to say necessarily privileged, but how entitled Stephen A. Smith is when he speaks about race, because nobody can speak about race against Stephen A. Smith because he is black. Nobody can do that. He said that to Skip Bayless so many times. You are not qualified. You are not qualified. You are not qualified. Okay? Stephen A. Smith looks like everything was handed to him. Okay, maybe he had to work for it as a kid. I don't know what he went through in his days now, but the guy's making millions. He's the highest paid analytic guy, whatever you want to call it, a journalist in ESPN right now, and he happens to be black. He's more higher paid than white analysts, than white journalists, than white media hosts and things like that, personalities. But he's not bringing that up whatsoever because, I mean, who cares, right? That doesn't fit his agenda. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't fit his agenda. So he wants to talk about all the black coaches. There's not enough black coaches in the NFL and things like that. But he doesn't want to talk about himself. He's the highest paid person in ESPN right now, and he happens to be black, and he's more higher paid than all the white people out there. So I just want to bring that up.
The New York Giants became the last NFL team in history to start an African-American quarterback. And they only did that one time. You got people out there talking and chirping about, I'm calling the Giants a racist organization. I'm doing no such thing. I'm not calling them anything.
Okay. So he defended himself after that statement. He defended himself in saying, you've got people out there saying that I'm calling the Giants the racist organization. That's not what I'm saying at all. Then why would you bring up those details in the way you did? You're over here saying Jerry Reese, an African-American GM. Geno Smith is the first quarterback to start that it happens to be black for the New York Giants, and the Giants are the last team to do so. The fact that he emphasized all those points to such a degree, and then he goes back and says, I'm not calling the Giants organization racist. Then what was your whole agenda in bringing up that whole entire point that was irrelevant to what we're talking about? Daniel Jones barely came out of this guy's mouth. Okay? So, I just don't know what he was trying to get at, but I think we all know what he's trying to get at. He knows what he's trying to get at, but everybody's just going to brush off the shoulder, especially Max Kellerman, who probably after this video, because it didn't say his take after that, probably pandered to whatever Stephen A. Smith was saying.
Now you end up having the number 2 overall pick. The number 2 overall pick last year. You draft Saquon Barkley instead of Sam Darnold. Fine. But this year you've got the number 6 overall pick. And universally, the quarterback situation was labeled Kyler Murray, Dwayne Haskins, and Drew Lock and Daniel Jones were competing with one another, depending on which aficionado you were willing to listen to. So Dwayne Haskins is right there, and the New York Giants pass on him. And does it beg the question that if Dwayne Haskins looked a little bit differently, perhaps the New York Giants would have selected differently? We don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know their history doesn't help in that equation. And with Gettleman chirping the way that he doesn't sound like he's making much sense either. That is the problem.
So then he just tried to kind of save himself a little bit and say, I don't know, you picked Saquon Barkley, number 2 overall. By the way, Saquon Barkley is black. I mean, just throwing it out there, Saquon Barkley is black. I'm sure if Kyler Murray was on the board, the Giants would have taken him. He's black. I don't know. It's just Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith is Stephen A. Smith, guys. I still enjoy sometimes watching him, to laugh at him and things like that, but this just triggers me to just a high degree. The only time I actually thoroughly enjoy Stephen A. Smith and on his side is when he talks about the Cowboys. He has a growing and very thriving hate for the Dallas Cowboys, and so do I, so we connect on that level, but this is something I do not agree with whatsoever. I do not agree with ESPN even acknowledging that he and gives him a raise for speaking like that. I don't understand whatsoever. This is what they paid this guy to say. He doesn't talk sports. He talks politics. He talks race. He throws the race card everywhere. And it is what it is from Stephen A. Smith. That's what you get from him. All that being said, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I really don't want to get too political and things like that. I kind of want to save that for my other channel. But this is sports related. We're talking sports here somewhat, right? Stephen A. Smith wants to go out the wire. But I want to expose this. For any of you Stephen A. Smith fans, you guys need to wake up, man. Stop watching ESPN. I don't even care who you watch. Stop watching ESPN. Molly Qerim. I used to like Molly Qerim when she was on NFL Network. I don't anymore, newsflash. Molly Qerim, Max Kellerman, Stephen A. Smith, all these guys, first take in general, just terrible. FS1, same thing, Nick Wright. Look, the only show I like is Undisputed. Skip Bayless, I remain a fan, even though he's crazy. I remain a fan of Skip Bayless. Trust me, I will expose Skip Bayless to the grave because it's just funny. But I like Skip Bayless. Shannon Sharp is all right. He throws race into it sometimes too, but he's more of a not really a professional guy out there. He's just a former player. But that is what it is, guys. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. If you like things like this, make sure to leave that in the comment section below. I'll definitely do more stuff like this. And remember to ring that notification bell so you never miss a video. And I'll see you guys in the next video.